It was a crisp autumn day when I received the peculiar invitation. An ornate envelope adorned with an elegant wax seal arrived at my doorstep. Its contents revealed an invitation to an exclusive gathering at a remote hotel, an event shrouded in mystery and intrigue. The Hotel Arcane, as it was named, was nestled deep within the Appalachian Mountains. The invitation detailed its location: a winding road, a hidden path, and a place that seemed to exist only in whispers. There was no explanation of why I'd been chosen, no mention of who the other guests might be. The invitation bore only a date and time: October 31, St. 10 p.m. Curiosity got the better of me. I couldn't resist the allure of the unknown, and the idea of a secluded gathering in a mysterious hotel piqued my interest. The days passed and my anticipation grew. I packed my bags, drove to the nearby town, and from there, followed the directions into the heart of the Appalachian wilderness. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I found myself on a desolate road, the GPS guiding me further into the wilderness. The thick canopy of trees overhead blocked out the moonlight, creating an eerie darkness that surrounded me. I could feel the chill in the air, a foreboding sensation that seemed to whisper of the secrets hidden in the mountains. Finally, I reached the end of the road as per the instructions. There, barely visible in the darkness, was a narrow path leading into the woods. I parked my car and followed the path, my footsteps echoing in the silence of the forest. The path led to a clearing, and there, bathed in an ethereal glow, stood the Hotel Arcane. It was an imposing structure, its dark stone walls towering above me. The flickering candlelight in the windows created an otherworldly ambiance, casting long shadows that danced in the night. I approached the entrance, and the massive wooden doors swung open as if by their own volition. The warm light from within beckoned me inside, and I stepped into the lobby of the Hotel Arcane. The lobby was unlike any hotel I had ever seen. It was a blend of old-world charm and modern luxury, with plush velvet sofas, crystal chandeliers, and antique oil paintings adorning the walls. The room was bustling with guests, their hushed conversations and laughter creating an atmosphere of camaraderie. The hotel staff, dressed in impeccably tailored suits, greeted me with polite smiles as if they had been expecting me. They guided me to the registration desk, where a woman with a serene demeanor awaited. "Welcome to the Hotel Arcane," she said, her voice soft and melodic. "I trust your journey was uneventful? May I have your name, please?" I provided my name, and she handed me a brass key with an intricate design, a key that bore no room number. Instead, she offered a cryptic message. "Your room will be revealed to you in time," she said, her eyes holding a secret I could not decipher. "For now, please enjoy the gathering. It will commence shortly." With that, I was free to explore the lobby, where guests in elegant attire mingled, their conversations laced with curiosity about the mysterious event that had brought them here. The air was charged with an energy I couldn't quite comprehend. Among the guests, I encountered a diverse group of individuals: a reclusive novelist, a renowned archaeologist, a celebrated pianist, and a detective known for solving unsolvable mysteries. They were all in attendance. Their presence added an air of mystique to the gathering, leaving me both fascinated and slightly apprehensive. The clock on the wall struck 10 p.m., and as if on cue, the gathering hushed. The woman from the registration desk stood at the center of the lobby, her presence commanding attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice resonating through the room, "welcome to the Hotel Arcane. Tonight you are among those who share a thirst for the enigmatic, a passion for the unknown. We have gathered to embark on a journey, one that will challenge the boundaries of knowledge and perception." The guests leaned forward, their curiosity piqued. I found myself caught in the anticipation that hung in the air. The woman continued, "In the heart of this hotel lies a chamber that holds the answers to questions you have yet to ask. But this chamber is not easily found. It will test your wits, your intuition, and your courage. It will push you to the limits of your understanding." A hush fell over the gathering as her words sank in. The challenge that lay ahead was not what any of us had expected. She motioned to the grand staircase that led to the upper floors. "The chamber awaits, but you must earn your place within it. You have until midnight to uncover its location. Those who succeed will be granted access to its secrets. Those who fail..." Her voice trailed off, leaving the consequences unspoken. With that, the guests scattered, each one determined to be the first to unlock the mystery of the Hotel Arcane. I followed the detective, drawn by the aura of confidence that surrounded him. We began our search on the third floor, exploring the dimly lit corridors and inspecting every room. It became evident that the hotel itself was a labyrinth, its architecture designed to confuse and disorient. Hidden doors, concealed passages, and rooms that seemed to shift their locations. Each step took us deeper into the puzzle. As the minutes ticked away, frustration began to mount. The detective and I were not alone in our quest. The reclusive novelist, the celebrated pianist, and the archaeologist, all were engaged in their own search, each one just as determined as the next. Time seemed to blur as we scoured the hotel. Midnight was fast approaching and desperation took hold. The Hotel Arcane revealed itself to be a place of maddening complexity, where the boundaries between reality and illusion blurred. It was then that I noticed something peculiar, a series of symbols etched into the doorframes of certain rooms. The symbols were cryptic, a language of their own. With a sense of intuition, I traced the symbols with my fingers, and the door to one particular room swung open. Inside, I found a chamber unlike any other in the hotel. It was an opulent library, its walls lined with ancient tomes and arcane artifacts. In the center of the room stood an ornate pedestal, upon which rested an ancient tome, its pages filled with inscrutable text. The detective and I approached the tome, our excitement building. Could this be the key to unraveling the mystery of the Hotel Arcane? We began to decipher the text, piecing together a narrative that defied comprehension. As the last stroke of midnight resounded through the hotel, a strange sensation washed over us. The air grew thick and the room seemed to shift. The walls closed in, the ceiling descended, and the symbols on the doorframe began to glow. Panic set in as we realized we were trapped. The room had transformed into a nightmarish puzzle, a challenge that defied logic. Desperate, we tried to decipher the symbols, to unlock the room's secrets, but time was running out. As the room continued to shift and contract, I caught a glimpse of the detective's determined expression, his mind racing to find a solution. It was then that a voice echoed in my mind, a whisper, a hint of a solution hidden within the text. With renewed determination, I began to rearrange the symbols, aligning them in a sequence that matched the text of the ancient tome. The room responded, the walls retracting, the ceiling rising. We had unlocked the chamber's secrets, but the ordeal had left us shaken. We emerged from the room to find the other guests in a state of confusion. Some had succeeded in their quests, while others had failed. The woman from the registration desk awaited us in the lobby, her expression inscrutable. "You have passed the first test," she said, her voice betraying no emotion. "You have earned your place within the chamber." With that, she led us to a grand door at the end of the lobby. The door swung open to reveal a chamber that defied description. The chamber was filled with ancient artifacts, each one imbued with a strange energy. Arcane symbols covered the walls and the air was thick with an otherworldly presence. At the center of the room stood a massive tome, its pages filled with secrets of the cosmos. The woman motioned to the tome. "This is the Codex Arcana, a repository of knowledge beyond human comprehension. It holds the answers to questions you have yet to ask, the mysteries of the universe, and the enigma of the Hotel Arcane." We were given the opportunity to peruse the tome, to delve into its secrets. The knowledge it contained was vast and profound, a testament to the complexity of the universe. It was a revelation, a glimpse into the mysteries that had drawn us here. As we pored over the pages, a sense of awe washed over us. The Hotel Arcane had not been a mere gathering place. It was a repository of knowledge, a gateway to the unknown. The woman's words echoed in my mind. The hotel challenged our understanding, pushed us to the limits of our perception, and rewarded us with enlightenment. Days turned into weeks as I immersed myself in the knowledge of the Codex Arcana. The revelations it offered were both profound and unsettling, expanding my understanding of the cosmos and the mysteries that lay beyond. As the time came for my departure from the Hotel Arcane, I couldn't help but wonder about the other guests. What had drawn them to this place, and what had they discovered in their quests? The enigma of the hotel remained, a puzzle that defied explanation. As I left the hotel and returned to the world beyond, I knew that the Hotel Arcane would forever remain in my memory. It was a place of mystery and revelation, a place where the boundaries of reality and illusion blurred, a place where the unknown beckoned. The enigma of the Hotel Arcane would continue to haunt me, a reminder of the limitless possibilities that lay beyond our understanding. It was a place that defied explanation, a place where the secrets of the universe were revealed to those willing to embark on a journey into the unknown. And so I left the Hotel Arcane behind, knowing that its mysteries would remain with me. A testament to the allure of the enigmatic, a reminder that there are truths beyond our comprehension, waiting to be discovered by those who dare to seek them. Story 2. I never imagined that my cross-country road trip would lead me to the Silent Hotel, a place that would forever change the way I thought about fear and isolation. My journey had started months ago when I decided to take a break from the hustle and bustle of city life. I longed for open roads and remote destinations, and I eagerly packed my car, ready to embark on a solo adventure. My route took me through countless small towns and picturesque landscapes, but as the sun began to set on a rainy evening, I found myself in a desolate corner of the country, far from any signs of civilization. That's when I saw it, the Silent Hotel. It loomed at the edge of the forest, a grand and imposing structure, its facade weathered by time and neglect. The neon sign that once proclaimed its name had long since faded, leaving only a few flickering letters that spelled the Sill Hotel. The rain battered against the windows, making it impossible to see inside. My car's gas gauge was perilously close to empty, and with no other options in sight, I decided to seek shelter there for the night. I pulled into the parking lot, the engine sputtering as I cut the ignition. The rain drummed on the car roof, and I grabbed my duffel bag, making a dash for the hotel's entrance. The worn wooden door creaked open, and I stepped into the lobby. The first thing that struck me was the silence. It was an eerie stillness, as if the very air had been stifled by years of abandonment. The reception desk stood before me, its surface cluttered with dusty papers and a tarnished brass bell that had seen better days. Behind the desk sat a middle-aged woman, her eyes hidden behind a pair of wire-framed glasses. "Welcome to the Silent Hotel," she said, her voice barely audible over the rain. "How may I assist you?" "I need a room for the night," I replied, my voice echoing in the empty lobby. She nodded, her movements slow and deliberate. "Certainly, sign in here, please." I scribbled my name and contact information on the faded ledger, the ink smudging slightly on the yellowed pages. The woman handed me an old-fashioned key with a metal tag that read, "Room 207. "Take the stairs to the second floor," she said, her voice monotone. "Your room is at the end of the hall." With key in hand, I made my way up the narrow staircase. The dimly lit hallway stretched before me, its threadbare carpet muffling my footsteps. The walls were adorned with faded paintings of idyllic landscapes, their frames crooked and tarnished. A sense of unease settled over me as I approached room 207. Inside the room was a stark contrast to the grandeur of the lobby. The furnishings were outdated and the wallpaper peeled in places. A single lamp cast a feeble glow, revealing the cracks in the ceiling and the stains on the faded carpet. The air was stale and a musty odor hung in the room. I tossed my duffel bag onto the bed and let out a sigh. It wasn't the most inviting place, but it would have to do for the night. I stripped out of my wet clothes and took a quick shower, the lukewarm water providing little comfort. As I settled into bed, the sense of isolation began to creep in. The rain continued its relentless assault on the windows, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was the only guest in the entire hotel. The silence outside was oppressive, and I found myself straining to hear any sign of life. Hours passed, and I lay in the darkness, unable to sleep. The walls seemed to close in on me, and the stillness was suffocating. It was then that I heard it, a faint, muffled sound coming from the room next door. It was like a whisper, too soft to make out any words. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I strained to listen, and the whispering grew slightly louder, but it was still unintelligible. It was as if someone was speaking just loud enough to be heard, but not enough to be understood. With a sense of unease, I climbed out of bed and pressed my ear against the wall that separated my room from the mysterious neighbor. The whispering continued, and I realized it was a conversation that was happening in hushed tones. I couldn't make out who was speaking or what they were saying, but the tension in the voices was palpable. It was as if they were arguing about something, their words filled with anger and desperation. As I listened, a feeling of unease washed over me. I considered knocking on the wall and asking them to keep it down, but something held me back. It was the feeling that I was intruding on something I shouldn't be a part of, something that was none of my business. I returned to my bed, but sleep was elusive. The whispered conversation next door continued, and my mind raced with thoughts of who could be staying in the room next to mine. Were they in trouble? Should I call the front desk or the police? The hours dragged on, and as dawn broke, the whispering finally ceased. Exhausted and restless, I drifted into a fitful sleep. When I awoke, the rain had stopped and the room was bathed in soft morning light. I decided to check out and put the strange events of the night behind me. I quickly dressed and headed downstairs to the lobby. To my surprise, the reception desk was empty, and there was no sign of the woman who had checked me in. The lobby was still eerily quiet, and I felt a growing sense of unease. I approached the front desk and saw the ledger from last night still open, as if it had been abandoned mid-entry. Curiosity got the better of me, and I scanned the recent entries. They were all from the same night, but the names were unfamiliar. Each entry had a timestamp from the early hours of the morning, suggesting they had been made after I returned to my room. Before I could investigate further, the lobby's entrance door swung open with a loud creak, startling me. I turned to see a disheveled man and a woman entering the hotel. Their clothes were rumpled, and they both had a wild look in their eyes. "Welcome to the Silent Hotel," the man said, his voice hoarse and strained. I nodded in response, my confusion growing. "Is everything okay?" The woman exchanged a quick glance with the man before replying, "We had a long night, that's all. Just looking for a place to rest." I watched as they approached the reception desk. Their voices hushed as they spoke to the absent woman behind the counter. Their conversation was too quiet for me to hear, but their expressions grew increasingly anxious. Suddenly the woman turned to me, her eyes wide with fear. "You should leave this place," she whispered urgently. "Get out while you still can." Before I could respond, the man grabbed her arm and pulled her away, disappearing down the hallway. I stood there, bewildered and shaken, as the words echoed in my mind. With a growing sense of unease, I decided it was time to heed their warning. I turned and headed for the lobby entrance, eager to put the Silent Hotel behind me. But as I reached for the door handle, I realized it wouldn't budge. Panic surged through me as I tugged at the door with all my strength, but it remained firmly shut. I was trapped. Frantically, I looked around the lobby for an escape. I spotted an old fire exit at the far end, its red exit sign faintly illuminated. I rushed toward it, hoping it would lead me to safety. As I reached the door, I pulled on the handle, praying it would open. To my relief, it did, and I stepped out into the crisp morning air. But my relief was short-lived as I realized where I was. The back of the hotel, facing a dense forest that stretched as far as the eye could see. I had no choice but to venture into the woods, my heart pounding with each step. The forest was quiet, and the only sound was the rustling of leaves in the breeze. I had no sense of direction, and every tree and bush seemed to blur together. Hours passed, and I felt a growing sense of desperation. I had no way of knowing if I was moving closer to civilization or deeper into the wilderness. My phone had no signal, and I had left my car behind at the hotel. Just as I was about to give in to despair, I spotted a glimmer of light through the trees. I followed it, stumbling out of the forest and onto a narrow road. A passing motorist stopped to help me, and I quickly explained my ordeal. The driver, a kind-hearted woman, offered to take me to the nearest town, which was several miles away. As we drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly escaped a sinister fate at the Silent Hotel. Months have passed since that night, but the memories of my stay at the Silent Hotel still haunt me. I've done some research trying to uncover the hotel's history, but I found nothing about its mysterious guests or the strange occurrences that took place there. The Silent Hotel remains an enigmatic place, a relic of the past with its secrets buried deep within its walls. I may never know what truly happened that night, but one thing is certain. I will never forget the unsettling silence that permeated the air and the chilling whispers that echoed through its halls. To this day, I can't help but wonder if the silent hotel still stands. Its doors open to unsuspecting travelers, its secrets waiting to be discovered by those who dare to check in. But one thing is for sure, I will never return to find out. Story 3. It was a journey I had long anticipated, a road trip to the remote countryside, far from the demands of my busy city life. My desire for solitude and a chance to reset my frazzled nerves led me to the small, picturesque town of Crestwood. I had heard about a quaint, centuries-old inn nestled among the rolling hills, the Embers Hotel. Little did I know that my decision to stay there would become a haunting experience beyond imagination. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow over the winding road as I neared my destination. The evening sky was a brilliant tapestry of reds and purples, a stark contrast to the pitch-black countryside that lay ahead. My GPS led me onto a narrow, forested path, and my excitement was tinged with trepidation. Just as I was beginning to doubt the accuracy of the directions, the Embers Hotel emerged from the darkness, an imposing 3-story structure framed by centuries-old oak trees. Its stone facade exuded an eerie Gothic charm, while the lit windows promised warmth and comfort. The gravel driveway crunched beneath my tires as I parked my car near the entrance. As I stepped out, a blast of chilly evening air greeted me, carrying with it the scent of rain-soaked earth and the faint rustling of leaves. My footfalls echoed in the quiet courtyard as I approached the entrance. The heavy wooden door swung open with a low, creaking groan, revealing an opulent lobby bathed in soft lamplight. The scent of aged leather and polished wood filled the air, creating an ambience of quiet sophistication. My eyes were drawn to the reception desk, where an elderly gentleman in a well-tailored suit stood, his demeanor as dignified as the hotel itself. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Embers Hotel. How may I assist you tonight?" His voice was smooth, accentuating the old-world charm of the place. "I have a reservation," I replied, handing him my identification. He examined my information and offered a polite smile. "Of course, Mr. Turner. You're in room 306. Here's your key." The key he handed me was an antique brass piece, cool to the touch. I nodded my thanks and made my way to the grand staircase that led to the upper floors. The staircase was adorned with intricate wrought iron railings, and the carpet beneath my feet was plush and well-worn, testifying to the hotel's storied history. On the 3rd floor, I followed the numbered signs along a dimly lit corridor until I reached room 306. The key turned smoothly in the lock, and the door swung open, revealing a spacious suite adorned with period furniture and rich dark wood paneling. The room was as I had hoped, a blend of classic elegance and modern comfort. I unpacked quickly, and as I settled into the sumptuous armchair near the window, I marveled at the solitude of the place. I was far removed from the noise and distractions of city life, and the tranquility of the countryside had a calming effect on my frayed nerves. Despite the comfort of my surroundings, sleep proved elusive. I tossed and turned, the occasional gust of wind against the windowpane disrupting my restless dreams. The ornate clock on the wall ticked away the hours, echoing through the silent room. It was well past midnight when I heard the first whispers. They were soft and indistinct, like a faint rustling of leaves. I lay in bed, straining my ears to catch the source of the sound. The wind outside had ceased, and an eerie stillness had settled over the hotel. The whispers continued, growing slightly louder but still incomprehensible. It was as though someone was engaged in a conversation just beyond the walls of my room. I contemplated dismissing it as a figment of my imagination, a consequence of fatigue, but the persistence of the voices unsettled me. With curiosity overcoming my initial reluctance, I rose from the bed and pressed my ear against the wall that separated my room from the one next door. The conversation became clearer, though the words remained muffled and indistinct. As I strained to listen, the urgency in the voices became apparent. It was not a casual conversation, but rather a heated exchange, filled with frustration and anxiety. The feeling that I had intruded on something private gnawed at me, but the words were still unintelligible. The exchange continued for what felt like hours, the voices rising and falling in intensity. The person in the neighboring room seemed to plead, while the other remained steadfast and resolute. There was a palpable tension in the air, and the anxiety I felt grew with each passing moment. The feeling of intrusion weighed heavily on me, and I considered knocking on the wall and asking them to keep it down. But fear, or perhaps a strange sense of respect for their privacy, held me back. Instead, I lay back in bed, my heart pounding, trying to drown out the whispers with a pillow over my head. Morning arrived, and with it, the cessation of the mysterious whispers. As the first light of day filtered through the curtains, I realized that I had spent a sleepless night in the Embers Hotel. Despite the lack of rest, a strange excitement coursed through me. There was a mystery to be unraveled, a puzzle hidden within the walls of this grand old establishment. I decided to start my exploration with breakfast in the hotel's dining room. The room was bathed in soft golden light, and the polished mahogany tables were set with pristine white tablecloths and gleaming silverware. The elderly waiter who served me was impeccably dressed and carried himself with the grace of a seasoned professional. "Good morning, sir. How did you find your first night at the Embers Hotel?" he inquired with a knowing smile. "Peaceful yet intriguing," I replied, my curiosity getting the better of me. "Tell me, who are the other guests staying here?" The waiter's expression remained composed, but a flicker of unease passed through his eyes. "We have a few guests, sir, but the Embers Hotel values its guests' privacy above all else. We do not disclose personal information about our patrons." I accepted his response, though I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of mystery surrounding the hotel and its guests. Over breakfast, I observed the other diners, an elderly couple engrossed in their newspapers, a solitary writer scribbling away in a journal, and a pair of hikers planning their day's excursion. After breakfast, I ventured into the sprawling library, a treasure trove of ancient books and vintage magazines. The atmosphere was hushed, with the occasional crackling of a log in the grand fireplace providing a comforting background noise. As I perused the dusty tomes, I couldn't shake the feeling that the library held secrets of its own. The hotel's history intrigued me, and I approached the reception desk later that morning to inquire about its past. The elderly gentleman from the previous night was now replaced by a middle-aged woman with warm yet cautious eyes. "I'm fascinated by the history of this place," I began. "Could you tell me more about the Embers Hotel and its past guests?" She regarded me for a moment as if considering her response carefully. The Embers Hotel has a storied history that spans several centuries. Many notable individuals have graced its halls over the years, seeking solace, inspiration, or escape from the world. However, our policy has always been to respect the privacy of our guests, both past and present. We do not divulge personal details or anecdotes. I couldn't hide my disappointment, though her words only fueled my curiosity further. With little information to go on, I resolved to explore the hotel on my own, to uncover the enigma of the Embers Hotel. Days turned into weeks, and my fascination with the Embers Hotel deepened. I spent my time wandering its labyrinthine corridors, admiring its antique furnishings, and absorbing the atmosphere that seemed to seep from every crevice. The whispers from the neighboring room had become a constant presence, a reminder of the mystery that hung in the air. It was during one of my explorations that I stumbled upon an unassuming door on the 4th floor. The door was slightly ajar and a soft light spilled from within. A plaque on the door read, "The Embers Room, Private." Intrigued, I pushed the door open gently, revealing a room that was unlike any other in the hotel. The walls were adorned with photographs, newspaper clippings, and handwritten notes. There were mementos, too, a collection of vintage items, each with its own story to tell. As I examined the photographs, I realized that they were all of the same person, a striking woman with dark, enigmatic eyes. She appeared in various settings, from glamorous parties to solitary walks in the countryside. Newspaper articles hinted at her wealth, her mysterious disappearance, and the enduring fascination that her story had held for the public. The room was a shrine to this unknown woman, and I couldn't help but wonder about her connection to the Embers Hotel. What had drawn her here, and why had she left behind such a detailed record of her life? My curiosity had reached its peak, and I was determined to uncover the truth. I began researching the woman's identity, scouring the internet for any information that might shed light on her story. The more I discovered, the more I became convinced that her connection to the Embers Hotel was a key to unraveling the mystery that had captivated me. Weeks turned into months as I delved deeper into the mystery of the Embers Hotel. My research led me down a rabbit hole of historical records, newspaper archives, and interviews with locals. It was during one of these interviews that I met an elderly gentleman named Mr. Simmons, a lifelong resident of Crestwood. "You're interested in the Embers Hotel, are you?" Mr. Simmons said, a twinkle in his eye. "Well, you've certainly chosen a fascinating subject. I've lived here all my life, and I've heard my fair share of stories about that place." I leaned in, eager to hear more. "Tell me everything you know." Mr. Simmons began with tales of the hotel's early days, when it had been a haven for artists, writers, and intellectuals seeking refuge from the chaos of the world. He spoke of lavish parties, passionate affairs, and the lingering echoes of creativity that still permeated the building's walls. But it was in the 1940s that things took a darker turn, Mr. Simmons continued, his voice dropping to a hushed tone. "There was a woman, you see, a woman who had it all: beauty, wealth, and fame. She was a regular guest at the Embers Hotel, always accompanied by her entourage of admirers." As Mr. Simmons spoke, I couldn't help but think of the photographs and mementos in the Embers room. It seemed that this woman had been the central figure in the hotel's history. Rumors began to circulate about the woman, Mr. Simmons went on. Whispers of a tragic past, of a secret that haunted her every step. It was said that she came to the Embers Hotel seeking solace, but that solace remained elusive. I leaned closer, my heart pounding. What happened to her? Mr. Simmons hesitated, as if deciding whether to reveal the darkest part of the story. "One night she disappeared," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "No one knew where she went or why. The hotel staff claimed she checked out, but her entourage was left behind, bewildered and distraught." I couldn't hide my shock. What could have driven her to leave so abruptly? "That's the question that's haunted Crestwood for decades," Mr. Simmons replied. "Some say she discovered a terrible secret, something that shook her to her core. Others believe she was pursued by a relentless force, a force that sought to claim her." The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. The whispers in the neighboring room, the photographs, the Embers room itself, all were connected to the mysterious woman who had vanished from the hotel. Determined to uncover the truth, I returned to the Embers Hotel that evening. The whispers had grown louder, more urgent, and I knew that the time had come to confront the enigma that had drawn me in. As I stood before the door to the Embers room, a sense of trepidation washed over me. The photographs on the walls seemed to watch, their silent presence a testament to the mystery that had brought me here. With a deep breath, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The soft lamplight cast a warm glow over the room, illuminating the photographs and mementos that adorned the walls. I approached the photographs, studying each one as if it held the key to the woman's story. It was then that I noticed something unusual, a photograph that I hadn't seen before. It depicted the woman standing in front of a grand, ornate mirror, her reflection distorted by the aged glass. The mirror itself was a work of art, its intricate frame adorned with symbols and carvings. Curiosity piqued. I examined the mirror more closely. It was unlike any I had ever seen, and the symbols etched into its surface seemed to tell a story of their own. My fingers traced the lines, and as I did, a sense of unease washed over me. The mirror was more than a mere decorative piece. It was a portal to another world, a gateway to a place that defied logic and reason. With trembling hands, I reached out and touched the glass, feeling a surge of energy course through me. In an instant, I was transported to a realm of darkness and uncertainty. The room around me vanished, replaced by a shadowy landscape of shifting shapes and ethereal whispers. The air was thick with anticipation, and the woman from the photograph stood before me, her eyes filled with sorrow. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered, her voice a haunting echo. "This place is not what it seems." I tried to speak, to ask her about the secrets of the Embers Hotel, but my words were lost in the void. The woman reached out, her fingers brushing against my hand, and in that moment I understood. The Embers Hotel was a place of secrets, a place where the past and present converged, where the whispers of history lingered in the air. The woman had discovered the truth, a truth that defied explanation, a truth that had driven her to vanish from the world. With a sense of urgency, I stepped back from the mirror, the room around me returning to its former state. The photographs, the mementos, the enigma of the Embers Hotel. They were all pieces of a puzzle that I could never hope to solve. I left the Embers Hotel that night, my mind in turmoil. The whispers had faded, and the mysteries of the hotel remained unsolved. As I drove away, I couldn't help but wonder if the truth would ever be revealed. Months have passed since that fateful night, and I've returned to my busy city life. The memories of the Embers Hotel continue to haunt me, a reminder of the enigma that remains unsolved. The woman from the photographs, the whispers in the neighboring room, the mysterious mirror, all are part of a story that defies explanation. The Embers Hotel stands as a testament to the unending mysteries of the world, a place where history and secrets converge, a place where the past is never truly forgotten. It is a place that will forever remain in my memory, a place where the enigma lingers like a whisper in the night. And so the Embers Hotel remains, its secrets hidden within its walls, waiting for the next curious soul to unlock the mysteries that lie within. It is a place where history and mystery converge, a place where the past and present are forever intertwined. As I reflect on my journey, I realize that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. Some secrets are meant to remain hidden. The Embers Hotel is one such place, a place where the enigma of the past continues to beckon, a place where the whispers of history will forever echo in the corridors of time. In the heart of the rural town of Milford, enveloped by vast cornfields that stretched across the horizon, lay the unsettling legend of the cornfield abduction. It was a chilling tale whispered among the townsfolk, a story that spoke of inexplicable disappearances haunting the labyrinthine rows of the cornfields. The legend traced back to a series of baffling events that unfolded years ago. It began with the mysterious disappearance of a young couple, Anna and Jacob, who ventured into the cornfields on a moonlit summer evening, never to return. Their absence sent shockwaves through the town, igniting speculation and fear within the community. Desperate searches yielded no trace of the missing couple, leaving behind only cryptic clues, an abandoned flashlight near the edge of the cornfields and fragmented footprints leading into the rows. As the town grappled with the unresolved mystery, more incidents emerged. Reports surfaced of strange occurrences, a disorienting sense of being watched while traversing the cornfields, peculiar lights flickering among the stalks, and an ominous aura that hung over the fields, fueling the folklore of the cornfield abduction. Detective Benjamin Hayes, haunted by the unsolved cases, devoted himself to unraveling the enigma shrouding the cornfields. He delved into the labyrinthine paths, studying the patterns of disappearances and seeking clues that might reveal the truth behind the unsettling legend. Among the townsfolk, tales of strange encounters and fleeting glimpses of elusive figures among the cornstalks spread like wildfire. Many attributed the phenomenon to extraterrestrial activity or clandestine experiments, while others believed in a more terrestrial, albeit unknown threat, lurking amidst the rows. Amidst the speculations, Lydia Campbell, an inquisitive young reporter eager to uncover the truth, arrived in Milford. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, Lydia embarked on an investigation into the cornfield abduction, determined to unravel the chilling mystery. Guided by the folklore, Lydia ventured into the cornfields, her footsteps echoing through the silent rows. The moon cast an eerie glow upon the sprawling expanse, creating haunting silhouettes that danced amidst the swaying stalks. As Lydia navigated the labyrinth of the cornfields, an unsettling sensation of being watched enveloped her. Faint whispers carried by the rustling leaves seemed to echo cryptic messages through the night, heightening her sense of trepidation. In a chilling moment, Lydia stumbled upon a clearing in the heart of the cornfield, a subtle anomaly amidst the rows. Strange markings etched into the soil caught her attention, an intricate pattern reminiscent of the tales surrounding the abductions. Before she could decipher the cryptic symbols, an inexplicable force gripped Lydia, engulfing her in an ethereal aura. Panic surged through her veins as she realized the impending danger lurking within the cornfields. In a harrowing crescendo, the rows around Lydia seemed to warp and distort, an unsettling transformation that defied reality. She found herself ensnared within a tight grip, an unseen force that rendered her powerless. In a final moment of horror, Lydia's cries pierced the night before the rows of corn enveloped her, swallowing her whole. The silence that followed echoed with a haunting emptiness, leaving behind only whispers of the terrifying fate that befell those who dared to tread into the sinister depths of the cornfield abduction. Story 2. In the heart of the countryside nestled the serene farming town of Millfield, renowned for its sprawling fields that stretched as far as the eye could see. Among these fertile expanses, one plot held a dark reputation, Holton's Field. Once a thriving land that yielded bountiful harvests, it now lay barren, haunted by an ominous curse that lingered like an unspoken secret among the townsfolk. Whispers of the curse stemmed from the tragic tale of Old Man Holton, the land's former owner, whose fate had become entwined with the cursed acres. Legends spoke of a Faustian bargain struck between Holton and a mysterious stranger, sealing the land's doom with an unbreakable curse that condemned it to wither and decay. Nathan Monroe, an ambitious farmer driven by a passion to restore the land's lost vitality, seized the opportunity to purchase Holton's Field, undeterred by the warnings and superstition shrouding its history. Determined to defy the curse and resurrect the dying acres, Nathan set out on a mission to breathe new life into the desolate soil. As Nathan plowed the fallow fields and sowed the seeds of hope, the air crackled with anticipation. Tender shoots emerged from the once barren earth, a glimmer of promise amidst the cursed land. The townsfolk, skeptical yet hopeful, watched with cautious optimism as the land seemed to respond to Nathan's unwavering dedication. However, the burgeoning promise soon gave way to dread signs that hinted at the curse's spiteful presence. Whispers spread throughout Millfield of peculiar occurrences, strange shapes etched by moonlight on the desolate landscape, spectral rustlings that echoed through the night, and an unnerving aura that enveloped the field. As the crops flourished, so did the ominous undertones. Reports surfaced of shadowy figures lurking among the rows, their elusive forms seemingly shifting and vanishing into the cornstalks. Fear crept insidiously through the town. The legend of Old Man Holton's curse resurrected, casting a haunting pall over the community. Undeterred by the mounting unease, Nathan forged ahead, driven by an unyielding determination to witness the transformation of the cursed acres. The ripening cornfields swayed in the gentle autumn breeze, a haunting symphony that filled the air with an unsettling melody. Yet it was on the eve of the harvest when the town's darkest fears materialized. The harvest moon ascended, casting an odd glow over Holton's Field, as an ethereal fog enveloped the land, concealing it in a strange haze. The once promising crops now bore a ghastly countenance, twisted and contorted stalks warped and mutated beyond recognition. A disconcerting chill gripped Nathan's heart as the fields transformed, an unnatural metamorphosis that defied explanation. Sinister shadows danced amidst the twisted rows, their ominous movements drawing Nathan's gaze with a morbid fascination. As Nathan ventured further into the cursed expanse, the shadows coalesced, morphing into ghostly figures that materialized from the cursed soil. Spectral entities, embodiments of the dark curse, emerged from the land, their ghastly forms pulsating with an unearthly evil. Frozen in terror, Nathan stood amidst the haunting spectacle, paralyzed by fear and disbelief. The spectral entities encircled him, their ethereal presence suffocating and oppressive. Panic surged through Nathan's veins as he realized the gravity of the curse that now held him captive. With an ear-splitting shriek that reverberated through the desolate field, the entities surged forth, their ghostly apparitions ensnaring Nathan within their ethereal grasp. Agonizing cries echoed through the cursed expanse, a chilling lament that marked Nathan's descent into the dark abyss of Old Man Holton's curse. The cursed land had claimed its latest victim, leaving behind a harrowing testament to the relentless grip of an ancient curse. As dawn broke over Millfield, the cursed acres stood silent and desolate, a haunting reminder of the tragic fate that befell those who dared to challenge the ominous legacy of Holton's Field. Story 3. In the heart of the countryside nestled the picturesque town of Willowbrook, surrounded by sprawling cornfields that whispered tales of a haunting mystery, the legend of the haunting echoes. Among the townsfolk, stories circulated of inexplicable phenomena that echoed through the rustling stalks, leaving behind an odd atmosphere that cast a shadow over the otherwise tranquil community. The legend of the haunting echoes traced back to a tragic incident that occurred decades ago. It began with the unexplained disappearance of a local farmer, Samuel Taylor, who ventured into the cornfields on a fog-shrouded night and vanished without a trace. Samuel's sudden disappearance became a chilling enigma, haunting the town for years to come. As time passed, whispers spread of strange occurrences within the cornfields. Residents reported unsettling echoes that reverberated through the stalks, an abnormal chorus that lingered in the air, faint whispers that seemed to convey cryptic messages, and an unshakable feeling of being watched amidst the rows. Among the townsfolk, superstitions mingled with curiosity, theories ranging from ghostly visitations to natural phenomena. Yet the truth behind the enigmatic echoes remained elusive, shrouded in an unsettling air of mystery. Emma Reynolds, an intrepid investigator with an insatiable thirst for unraveling unsolved mysteries, arrived in Willowbrook, drawn by the chilling tales of the haunting echoes. Determined to shed light on the mysterious phenomenon, Emma embarked on an investigation, armed with her unwavering resolve and a thirst for truth. Her exploration led her to the outskirts of the cornfields, where the towering stalks formed an intricate maze. The wind whispered through the rows, creating an ethereal ambience that seemed to carry murmurs of long-forgotten secrets. As Emma ventured deeper into the heart of the cornfields, an uncanny sensation enveloped her, an inexplicable presence that seemed to watch her every move. Whispers carried by the rustling leaves sounded like faint echoes of distant voices, heightening her sense of foreboding. In a moment of chilling discovery, Emma stumbled upon a clearing nestled amidst the cornstalks, a peculiar space that seemed to emit a mystical energy. Strange symbols etched into the soil caught her attention, an intricate pattern that echoed the tales of the haunting echoes. Before Emma could decipher the cryptic symbols, an unsettling phenomenon unfurled around her. The rows of corn seemed to come alive, swaying in an unnaturally synchronized motion. The air crackled with a dark resonance as the echoes intensified, forming an unsettling chorus that reverberated through the night. As Emma stood amidst the haunting tableau, a sudden realization struck her. The echoes were not mere sounds, but a conduit to an ancient malevolence lurking within the cornfields. In a spine-chilling crescendo, the echoes coalesced, swirling around Emma in an ethereal dance. An unseen force seized her, enveloping her in an overwhelming grip, an icy coldness that rendered her paralyzed. In a final moment of horror, the echoes consumed Emma, their haunting resonance drowning her in an abyss of chilling whispers. The silence that followed was deafening, leaving behind only whispers of the terrifying fate that befell those who dared to probe the chilling depths of the haunting echoes. Story 4. In the heart of a rural community lay the idyllic town of Greenview, surrounded by vast expanses of cornfields that extended as far as the eye could see. Among these fields lay a shadow that tainted the serene landscape, the chilling legend of the cornfield murders. The tale of the cornfield murders haunted Greenview, an unsolved mystery that shook every resident. It began a decade ago when a series of heinous crimes transpired, all linked to the vast cornfields that defined the town's landscape. The first victim, Rachel Thompson, a local school teacher, went missing on a balmy summer evening. Her disappearance sent shockwaves through the community, leaving behind only a few cryptic clues, signs of a struggle near the edge of the cornfields and faint traces of footsteps leading into the maze-like expanse. As the investigation into Rachel's disappearance commenced, a disturbing pattern emerged. More residents vanished under eerily similar circumstances. Each victim had one thing in common. They were last seen near or within the labyrinth of cornstalks that enveloped Greenview. Detective Mark Stevens, a seasoned investigator haunted by the unsolved cases, delved into the chilling enigma that plagued the town. His pursuit led him to the edge of the cornfields, a dreadful expanse that seemed to hold the secrets to the baffling disappearances. Despite exhaustive searches and relentless investigations, the maze-like nature of the cornfields defied logic, thwarting attempts to unravel the mystery. The townsfolk grew apprehensive, avoiding the fields after dark, fearful of falling prey to an elusive predator that lurked within the shadows. Sarah Wilson, a young journalist eager to unearth the truth, arrived in Greenview, drawn by the enigmatic aura surrounding the Cornfield murders. As Sarah delved deeper into the town's haunting legacy, she encountered a mosaic of chilling accounts. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah ventured into the fields, navigating the twisting paths in search of answers. The dense rows of corn towered above her, casting elongated shadows that seemed to dance in the moonlight, forming a strange tapestry. As Sarah probed further into the labyrinth, an unsettling sensation of being watched enveloped her. Faint whispers carried by the rustling leaves echoed in the silent night, as though the cornfield itself harbored a hidden darkness. In a moment of chilling revelation, Sarah stumbled upon a clearing within the cornfield marked by a grotesque sight, a circle of symbols etched into the ground. The symbols pulsated with a dark glow, casting an ominous aura that sent a tremor down Sarah's back. Before Sarah could decipher the cryptic symbols, a shadowy figure emerged from the corn rows, shattering the silence. Panic surged through her veins as she recognized the dark silhouette, its scary presence looming closer. With a sudden realization, Sarah understood the harrowing truth. The cornfield concealed a sinister entity that preyed upon unsuspecting victims, ensnaring them within its ominous depths. Before she could flee, the shadowy figure lunged forth, its ghostly apparition enveloping Sarah in an ethereal grasp. Her terrified screams pierced the night, a harrowing chorus that echoed through the silent fields before fading into a mysterious silence. As dawn broke over Greenview, Sarah Wilson became the latest victim claimed by the Cornfield murders, leaving behind an unsolved mystery that continued to cast its haunting shadow over the town. The labyrinth of cornstalks stood as a grim testament to the chilling fate of those who dared to venture into its sinister embrace. Story 5. In the heart of the countryside stood the quaint town of Rockwell, encircled by vast expanses of cornfields that held a chilling secret: the legend of the Cornfield cult. Whispers of a clandestine group that lurked amidst the rows, practicing rituals shrouded in secrecy, haunted the townsfolk, casting an ominous shadow over the serene community. The legend of the Cornfield cult was steeped in mystery, stemming from a dark chapter in Rockwell's history. It was said to have originated generations ago, when a charismatic leader, Reverend Elijah Grant, established a fervent following, preaching doctrines of devotion to the land and the bountiful harvest it promised. The townsfolk whispered tales of sinister gatherings held within the cornfields, a secluded sect that adhered to arcane rituals beneath the moon's pale glow. Strange symbols etched into the soil and whispered incantations became the whispers of the cult's presence, leaving the townsfolk gripped by fear. Detective Mia Thompson, renowned for her unrelenting pursuit of the truth, arrived in Rockwell, drawn by the haunting rumors of the Cornfield cult. Determined to unravel the mystery, Mia embarked on an investigation, propelled by her tenacious spirit and a commitment to uncover the chilling truth. Her inquiries led her to the outskirts of the cornfields, where the whispering stalks formed an intimidating maze. The rustling leaves carried an uncanny ambience, setting the stage for a confrontation with the unknown. As Mia delved deeper into the heart of the cornfields, a sensation of being watched enveloped her. The air crackled with an unsettling energy, and the faint murmur of distant chants seemed to echo amidst the rows, heightening her sense of unease. In a chilling revelation, Mia stumbled upon a clearing nestled amidst the cornstalks, a sight that bore the unmistakable signs of the cult's clandestine activities. Strange symbols adorned the soil, remnants of eerie rituals conducted under the cloak of darkness. Before she could process the implications of her discovery, an ominous presence materialized from the shadows. A group of hooded figures emerged from the corn rows, their faces obscured by dark robes, their eyes ablaze with fervent devotion. Realizing the danger that loomed, Mia attempted to retreat, but it was too late. The cultists encircled her, their fervor fueled by unwavering devotion to their leader's teachings. In a harrowing crescendo, the cultists seized Mia, binding her in a ritual. Unearthly chants reverberated through the night, invoking an ancient force that pervaded the air, suffocating and oppressive. As Mia struggled against the cultists' grip, a chilling realization dawned upon her. The cornfield cult was not merely a group of fanatics, but an entity that wielded a sinister influence over the land itself. In a final moment of horror, the cultists conducted their ritual, offering Mia as a sacrifice to appease the land. Her screams pierced the night before being swallowed by an ominous silence, leaving behind only whispers of the terrifying fate that awaited those who dared to confront the dark secrets of the cornfield cult. Story 6. In the heart of the countryside stood the tranquil town of Greenleaf, enveloped by vast swaths of cornfields that held a chilling secret, the enigmatic crop circle mystery. Whispers of mysterious symbols etched into the cornfields circulated among the townsfolk, hinting at an unexplained phenomenon that left an unnatural mark on the landscape. The crop circle mystery had haunted Greenleaf for years, each intricate pattern in the cornfields, a riddle that defied explanation. Tales spoke of bizarre formations appearing overnight, intricate glyphs carved into the cornstalks with uncanny precision, leaving behind an enigmatic puzzle that confounded both residents and scientists alike. Among the townsfolk, speculation ran rampant, theories ranging from extraterrestrial visitations to elaborate hoaxes. However, the truth behind the cryptic symbols remained elusive, shrouded in an unsettling air of mystery. Alexandra Evans, a determined investigative journalist, arrived in Greenleaf, drawn by the enigmatic tales of the crop circle mystery. Intrigued by the unexplained phenomenon, Alexandra set out to unravel the truth behind the weird glyphs that adorned the cornfields, armed with a relentless curiosity and a desire for answers. Her pursuit led her deep into the heart of the cornfields, where the towering stalks formed an intimidating maze. The evening sun cast elongated shadows, creating an ethereal ambience that added to the mystery shrouding the landscape. As Alexandra ventured further, she stumbled upon the first signs of the inexplicable phenomenon, a vast expanse of cornstalks that bore intricate patterns, forming a labyrinth of enigmatic symbols etched into the soil. The glyphs were a mesmerizing sight, their complex designs hinting at an intelligence beyond human comprehension. Alexandra meticulously examined the formations, the precision of the glyphs leaving her awestruck and unsettled simultaneously. In the twilight hours, the cornfield seemed to awaken with an uncanny presence. Faint whispers carried by the rustling leaves danced through the air, as though the fields themselves were alive with a mystical energy. Alexandra's senses tingled with an inexplicable foreboding. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, Alexandra delved deeper into the heart of the glyph-marked fields, determined to uncover the truth. The air crackled with an ethereal aura, the glyphs pulsating with an ethereal glow that intensified as she approached. In a chilling revelation, Alexandra realized the glyphs were more than mere symbols. They were a conduit, a bridge between worlds, and the catalyst for an evil-minded force lurking beneath the cornfields. As she stood amidst the mesmerizing formations, a deafening silence enveloped the fields before an unearthly resonance reverberated through the air. The glyphs began to shift and contort, an ominous transformation that heralded the descent of an ancient darkness. Before Alexandra could comprehend the danger, the glyphs released in mystic energy, ensnaring her within their eldritch grasp. An agonizing scream tore through the night as she became intertwined with the ominous force that lay dormant beneath the soil. In a final moment of horror, the glyphs sealed shut, swallowing Alexandra within their cryptic embrace. Her anguished cries echoed through the desolate fields before fading into a silence, leaving behind only whispers of the chilling fate that befell those who dared to unravel the mysteries of the crop circle glyphs. In the heart of a remote ancient forest shrouded in darkness and mystery, there lived a man known to the locals as the Woodsman. He was a solitary figure, his face hidden beneath a tangle of unkempt hair and a scraggly beard. He dwelled in a small, ramshackle cabin far from the closest town, surrounded by towering trees and a persistent air of dread. The townsfolk told creepy tales of the Woodsman, stories passed down through generations, describing him as a guardian of the woods, a man who had forged a sinister alliance with the forest's malevolent spirits. They said he could speak to the trees and command the animals to do his bidding. The forest, they whispered, was his domain, and anyone who ventured too close to his cabin would suffer a fate worse than death. Curiosity, however, can be a powerful motivator, And one evening, a young adventurer named Mark decided to seek out the woodsman. Armed with a lantern and a sense of determination, he ventured into the dark and foreboding woods, determined to uncover the truth behind the tales. The forest's thick canopy cast long, twisted shadows that danced eerily in the lantern light. Mark's footsteps were the only sound to break the silence, and he could feel the weight of the woods pressing in on him, as if the very trees were watching his every move. As Mark ventured deeper into the forest, the trees seemed to close in around him, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. He stumbled through the underbrush, the brambles tearing at his clothing and skin, leaving a trail of blood in his wake. Yet he pressed on, driven by an unshakable determination to find the woodsman. The tales of the woodsman had always fascinated Mark, and he had heard countless stories of the strange happenings in the forest. The birds that sang melancholy songs, the trees that whispered secrets in the dead of night, and the shadows that moved with a sinister purpose. It was said that the woodsman had unlocked the secrets of the forest's darkest corners, and Mark was determined to discover them for himself. After hours of trudging through the dense woods, Mark stumbled upon the woodsman's cabin. It was a decrepit, ramshackle structure, with walls adorned with strange symbols and twisted vines. The air around the cabin felt heavy, as if it bore the weight of untold secrets. The door was slightly ajar, inviting Mark inside. Upon entering, Mark found himself in a dark room, its walls lined with an array of peculiar mystical artifacts. He could see intricate masks, weathered tomes filled with cryptic incantations, and taxidermy animals that seemed to leer at him with glassy, lifeless eyes. The atmosphere was stifling, and Mark's heart pounded with both fear and curiosity. As Mark explored further, he discovered a journal filled with the woodsman's unsettling musings. The journal spoke of an ancient pact between the woodsman and the forest's malevolent spirits, an alliance forged in blood and darkness. It described rituals performed under the blood-red moon, where the woods came alive with mystic, unnatural sounds. Undeterred by the discoveries, Mark continued his exploration. He ascended a rickety staircase, its creaking protestations adding to the sense of foreboding. On the upper floor, he found a door slightly ajar, and pushed it open to reveal a room unlike any other. Inside, the room was bathed in an otherworldly, sinister light. The walls seemed to pulse with life, covered in a strange, undulating pattern. In the center of the room, a massive ancient tree had taken root. Its gnarled branches reached out like skeletal limbs, and its bark bore intricate, glowing symbols. As Mark approached, the tree's bark parted to reveal a hollow cavity, and within that cavity lay a heart, pulsing with an unnatural crimson light. Mark felt a pull, a compulsion to touch the heart, to understand its secrets. With trembling hands, he reached out and touched the pulsating heart, and in that moment, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the forest. The very ground beneath Mark quaked, and the forest itself seemed to come alive, its malevolent spirits awakened. Mark's vision blurred, and he felt himself being pulled into the heart, as if absorbed by the very essence of the forest. The trees whispered secrets, the animals watched with knowing eyes, and Mark's own voice joined the chorus of the wood's haunting song. The legend of the woodsman lived on, a chilling testament to the forest's dark secrets. Those who dared to venture into the heart of the whispering woods were warned of the man who had become one with the forest, a man who had unlocked the very essence of the woods and paid the price in the most horrifying of ways. Story 2. In a quiet, forgotten corner of the small town of Willowbrook, there stood a decaying mansion, its once grand facade now crumbling under the weight of time. It was known as the O'Donnell House, and it had been abandoned for decades, its dark history shrouded in mystery. The townspeople whispered stories of a curse that had plagued the O'Donnell family for generations, tales of unexplained disappearances and tragic deaths. The mansion was a place of legend, but few dared to venture near it, let alone enter its ominous doors. However, curiosity can be a powerful motivator, and it drew one brave soul into the shadow of the mansion on a moonless night. Her name was Sarah, a young woman with a fascination for the supernatural and an unquenchable thirst for adventure. She had heard the tales of the O'Donnell house and couldn't resist the allure of its dark secrets. Armed with a flashlight and a backpack filled with supplies, she approached the mansion cautiously. The front gate groaned as she pushed it open, and Sarah's heart pounded as she stepped onto the overgrown path. Weeds and thorns clawed at her legs, and the chilling wind whispered scary melodies through the surrounding trees. She reached the front doors and pushed them open with an echoing creak. The entry hall was grand but shrouded in darkness, with an elaborate chandelier that dangled ominously overhead. Sarah's flashlight cast long, wavering shadows that danced around her. Her footsteps echoed through the cavernous space as she explored further. Paintings of stern-faced O'Donnell ancestors lined the walls, their eyes following her every move. She ventured deeper into the mansion, her footsteps echoing through the empty rooms. She found herself in a dusty library, its shelves lined with decaying books. The pages crumbled beneath her touch as she leafed through them, revealing tales of the O'Donnell family's curse. It was said that the mansion was built upon an ancient burial ground, and that the spirits of the restless dead still roamed its halls. Undeterred by the stories, Sarah continued her exploration, determined to uncover the truth. She ascended a grand staircase, each step protesting her intrusion with a haunting creak. On the second floor, she discovered a long corridor lined with numerous closed doors. She hesitated for a moment, then chose one at random and opened it. Inside, she found a bedroom frozen in time. A canopy bed with tattered curtains, a vanity covered in dust, and a cracked mirror that seemed to reflect more than just her image. As she inspected the room, Sarah felt a sudden chill, as if an unseen presence had entered. Turning to leave, the door slammed shut with a resounding crash. Sarah's heart raced as she struggled to open it, but it was as if the door had become one with the wall. Panic set in as her flashlight flickered, casting long shadows on the wallpaper, which seemed to twist and writhe like a living entity. Sarah's trembling hands finally managed to open the door, and she stumbled out into the corridor. Her flashlight sputtered and died, plunging her into darkness. She felt a presence behind her, something unseen and malevolent. Whispers filled the air, and the cold breath of an otherworldly force caressed her neck. In blind terror, she ran down the corridor, her footsteps echoing and disjointed. The walls seemed to close in on her, and the whispers grew louder, forming words that were incomprehensible yet filled with dread. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she fled the nightmare that had overtaken her. She burst into the entry hall where the chandelier now swung wildly, casting dark, shifting patterns of light and shadow. With a final burst of strength, she pushed open the heavy front doors and stumbled out into the night. The mansion loomed behind her, its dark windows filled with secrets that would never be revealed. Sarah had escaped, but she was forever changed. She bore the weight of a horror she could never forget. The memory of a room that existed outside the realm of the living. A room that should have remained forever locked. Story 3. Nestled deep within the heart of the Whispering Woods lay an ancient, abandoned mansion known as the Forsaken Manor. It was a place of dread, surrounded by legends and superstitions. Locals whispered tales of its haunting history, where a once prominent family met a tragic end. The Forsaken Manor was said to be cursed, its halls echoing with the tormented souls of the past. On a moonless night under the thick canopy of trees, a solitary figure approached the mansion. Her name was Emily, a young woman with a penchant for the macabre. Her fascination with the supernatural had drawn her to the Forsaken Manor, and she was determined to unravel its mysteries. Armed with a lantern and a journal, she ventured forward into the inky darkness. The mansion's gates creaked open, and Emily's lantern illuminated the overgrown path, revealing thorny vines and twisted trees that seemed to reach for her like skeletal fingers. A silence enveloped the area as if the very air held its breath. Emily continued her journey, her heart pounding in her chest. The front doors of the mansion groaned open, revealing an entrance hall that was once grand but now lay in ruin. Cracked marble floors and shattered chandeliers greeted her, and shadows danced on the walls like restless spirits. Her lantern's feeble light created a flickering, ghostly effect. As Emily explored further, she discovered a library with tattered, rotting books. Some were barely readable, containing cryptic accounts of the Forsaken Manor's dark past. It was said that the family had practiced forbidden rituals, and in their desperation, they made a pact with a malevolent force. Undeterred by the stories, Emily pressed on. She ascended a majestic staircase, each step groaning as if protesting her intrusion. On the second floor, she found a corridor with countless closed doors. She hesitated, then chose one at random. Inside, a bedroom awaited, frozen in time. A 4-poster bed draped with cobwebs, a vanity covered in dust, and a shattered mirror that reflected Emily as a ghostly, distorted figure. Emily sensed something amiss. The room felt alive, as if it pulsed with an invisible energy. Turning to leave, the door slammed shut with a resounding crash. Panic surged through Emily as she struggled to open it, but it refused to budge. The room itself seemed to close in around her, the walls drawing nearer and the air growing colder. She heard faint whispers, words that sent shivers down her spine. Terrified, Emily finally forced the door open, stumbling back into the corridor. Her lantern flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. She felt an oppressive presence behind her, a malevolence that radiated hatred and cruelty. Whispers filled the air, growing louder and more coherent, though their meaning remained cryptic. Frantic, Emily ran down the corridor, her footsteps echoing erratically. The walls seemed to ripple and twist, and the whispers turned into chilling laughter. She burst into the entry hall, where shattered chandeliers cast grotesque dancing shadows. Desperation gripped her as she pushed open the front doors and fled into the night. Story 4. Deep within the heart of Whispering Pines Forest, there existed a dark secret hidden from the eyes of mankind. For generations, the locals had shared chilling tales of a malevolent creature that roamed the woods, a being that emerged only in the shroud of night, seeking to torment anyone who dared to enter its realm. They called it the Phantom of Whispering Pines. One gloomy evening, under a heavy rain-laden sky, a brave soul named Alex ventured into the heart of Whispering Pines Forest. The stories of the Phantom had always intrigued them, and they were determined to uncover the truth behind the legend. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of determination, Alex set out to explore the enigmatic woods. The forest was dense with ancient trees, their gnarled branches intertwined like skeletal fingers. The thick canopy above allowed only the faintest trickle of light to penetrate, casting shadows on the forest floor. As the sky darkened, the air grew heavy with an unnatural silence, broken only by the hushed whisper of the wind through the leaves. The forest stillness only fueled Alex's curiosity as they delved deeper into the undergrowth. The uneven path was overgrown, and thorns clawed at their clothing, leaving trails of blood in their wake. The beam of the flashlight revealed twisted, gnarled roots that seemed to reach out, as if warning Alex to turn back. Despite the ominous atmosphere, Alex pressed forward. The tales of the Phantom were a mere catalyst for their insatiable desire for the unknown. As the night deepened, the forest appeared to shift and twist, the trees closing in around them as if forming an impenetrable barrier. It was in the heart of Whispering Pines that Alex found a small, dilapidated cabin, hidden amidst the ancient trees. It was said to be the lair of the Phantom, and Alex was determined to uncover its secrets. The cabin's wooden door was ajar, and with a deep breath they pushed it open. Inside, the cabin was a scene of disarray. Broken furniture, rotting curtains, and cobwebs clung to every surface. The air was stagnant and heavy with a rancid odor. As Alex explored further, they found a weathered journal on a decaying wooden desk. The journal spoke of the Phantom, a creature born of darkness, a manifestation of ancient curses and forgotten rituals. The entries detailed how the locals had long ago sealed the creature within the depths of the forest, hoping to confine it to their nightmares forever. However, it was a curse that had merely slumbered, waiting for an unwitting soul to awaken it. The last page of the journal contained a warning, urging any who read it to flee the forest before nightfall, lest they become the unwitting catalyst for the Phantom's resurgence. Alex's heart raced as they read the ominous words, but they were determined to uncover the truth. Ignoring the warning, they ventured further into the forest, driven by an insatiable need to unravel the enigma of the Phantom. The forest grew denser, the shadows more menacing, and the silence seemed to deepen. As the moon reached its zenith, Alex's flashlight flickered, casting uncertain light on the gnarled trees. Panic surged through them as the flashlight died, leaving them in darkness. The forest seemed to come alive, the trees whispering in an unknown tongue, and Alex heard the phantom of approaching footsteps. The creature, an amalgamation of darkness and malice, emerged from the shadows. Its form shifted and swirled, a grotesque, ever-changing silhouette. It drew closer, its malevolent presence suffocating. Alex stumbled backward in terror, their heart pounding in their chest. With a spine-chilling shriek, the phantom lunged forward, its shadowy tendrils reaching out like vipers. Alex's screams echoed through the forest as the creature enveloped them, dragging them into the abyss of whispering pines. I had always imagined that the first year of marriage would be full of love, laughter, and adventure. My husband John and I were excited to begin this journey together. Little did we know that our adventure would take us to a place shrouded in mystery and darkness, a house with a history that had the townsfolk filled with fear. The house stood at the end of Willow Street, an imposing Victorian structure that loomed over the neighborhood. The moment we laid eyes on it, we fell in love. The high, arched windows, the ornate wooden details, and the sprawling garden in the back. Everything about the house was perfect. We were told that it had been empty for years, but no one seemed eager to share the reason. As we moved in, I couldn't help but feel a sense of trepidation. The house had an air of antiquity, with creaking floorboards and long, dark hallways. The previous owner had left behind old, dusty furniture that seemed to belong to another era. The entire place was a throwback to the 19th century. We spent our first few days unpacking and exploring our new home. The living room was adorned with a grand fireplace, and a beautiful chandelier hung from the ceiling. It was the perfect place for cozy evenings together. The kitchen, though outdated, had a charming feel, and I couldn't wait to cook our first meal there. The bedroom, with its heavy drapes and old-fashioned wardrobe, was both enchanting and slightly eerie. It wasn't long before strange occurrences began. At first, it was the soft whispers that seemed to emanate from the walls. John and I exchanged nervous glances as we tried to make out the words. The whispers were unintelligible, but they sounded like voices from another time. One evening, as we sat in the living room, we heard the whispers again. This time, I was certain that the voice said, "Help me." I shivered and looked at John, who had a concerned expression. He dismissed it as a draft or our imagination, but the unease lingered. As the weeks went by, the whispers grew more frequent. I decided to confide in our neighbor, Mrs. Davis, who had lived in the neighborhood for decades. She was known as the local historian and a keeper of town secrets. Mrs. Davis listened to my story with a knowing look. "That house, dear," she began. "It has a history and not a pleasant one. It was built by a wealthy family in the late 1800s, the Chattertons. They were reclusive, strange people, and the townsfolk had always whispered about their dark practices." She paused for effect. "The Chattertons dabbled in the occult, trying to communicate with the dead. They believed the house had a connection to the spirit world, and they performed rituals in the hopes of unlocking its secrets." My heart raced as I realized that the whispers we heard might be connected to the Chattertons' experiments. Mrs. Davis went on, "It said that they summoned a presence they couldn't control, and it cursed the house. After that, no one dared to live there, and the Chatterton family vanished without a trace." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The house we had so eagerly moved into had a dark and chilling history. But what could we do? We had just started our life together, and leaving wasn't an option. We decided to research the house's history and learn more about the Chatterton family. Our research led us to old newspaper clippings and journal entries from the late 1800s. The more we discovered, the more we realized the depth of the Chatterton family's obsession with the supernatural. They believed that the house was a portal to the afterlife and that they could communicate with the dead through seances and dark rituals. One journal in particular made my pulse rise. The whispers grow louder, and I fear we have awakened something dark. Shadows move through the house at night, and I've seen apparitions in the hallways. We must find a way to undo what we've done before it's too late. It was evident that the Chattertons had unleashed something beyond their control, and it had plagued the house ever since. As we delved deeper into the history, we couldn't ignore the increasing occurrences in the house. Doors would open and close on their own, and we heard footsteps in empty rooms. The whispers continued, and I couldn't help but feel that they were trying to tell us something. One night we awoke to the sound of a child crying. John rushed out of bed and followed the sound to the nursery. There he saw a faint, ghostly figure, a little girl in a white dress. She turned to him with tearful eyes, her voice trembling as she said, "Help me, please." As he reached out to touch her, she disappeared into thin air. John returned to our room, his face pale. "I saw her," he said, his voice shaking. "A little girl, just like the one from the old photographs we found in the attic. She was asking for help." We couldn't ignore the plea of the ghostly child any longer. We reached out to Mrs. Davis once more, hoping she could shed light on the mysterious girl. She listened intently and revealed that the Chattertons had a daughter, Emily, who had gone missing and was never found. It was believed that the entity they had summoned had taken her, and her spirit was trapped in the house. We realized that Emily's spirit was trying to communicate with us, asking for the help she never received in life. We couldn't turn our backs on her, and we decided to try and find a way to release her from the house's curse. Mrs. Davis suggested that we perform a ritual to free Emily's spirit. She explained that it would be a way to break the connection between the Chattertons' experiments and the trapped souls. We were hesitant but desperate to bring peace to the house. With Mrs. Davis's guidance, we gathered the necessary materials and prepared for the ritual. The air grew heavy as we lit candles, burned sage, and chanted incantations. The whispers in the walls grew louder and more frantic, as if the spirits were aware of our intentions. In the midst of the ritual, a chill filled the room and a shadowy figure appeared before us. It was Emily, her eyes filled with both fear and longing. She whispered, "Thank you," before slowly fading away, leaving behind an overwhelming sense of relief. As the ritual concluded, the house fell silent. The whispers were gone and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. It was as though the curse that had plagued the house for decades had finally been broken. We felt a sense of peace we had never experienced before. In the weeks that followed, the house no longer felt haunted. It was a place of warmth, and we could finally enjoy our marriage without the constant presence of restless spirits. Emily had found her release, and the darkness that had clung to the house had dissipated. Story 2. My name is Alex Holloway, and I never believed in ghosts until I moved into Hollywood House. I had inherited the old Victorian mansion from a distant relative I'd never met. The news of my sudden inheritance came as a shock, but the prospect of living in such a grand, historic house excited me. Little did I know that the house came with a history that would test the very limits of my skepticism. I had always considered myself a rational, level-headed person. I was an engineer by profession, and I approached life with a practical and analytical mindset. Ghost stories were nothing more than tales told around campfires designed to scare and amuse. But that was before I set foot in Hollywood House. The mansion sat atop a hill overlooking the sleepy town of Hollywood. The exterior was a sight to behold, with its ornate architecture, towering turrets, and sprawling gardens. It was a place that seemed to belong to a different era, and the townsfolk whispered about its dark past. The house had stood empty for as long as anyone could remember, and its imposing presence cast a shadow over the town. My first night in Hollywood House was a surreal experience. As I walked through the echoing hallways with a single flickering candle, I couldn't help but wonder about the stories I'd heard. People claimed to have seen figures in the windows at night, heard unexplained footsteps in the empty corridors, and witnessed lights flicker and doors open and close on their own. These were the tales that had earned the mansion its haunted reputation. I settled into one of the spacious bedrooms on the second floor, the large canopy bed and heavy drapes making me feel like I'd stepped into a period drama. As I lay in bed, I tried to dismiss the unease I felt. The wind whistled through the old windows, and the house seemed to sigh with its own ancient history. That night, as I drifted off to sleep, I heard it, a faint, distant whisper. I dismissed it as a trick of the wind or my own overactive imagination. But the whisper persisted, growing louder and more distinct. It was as though a voice from the past was trying to communicate with me. I strained my ears, and the words became clearer. "Help me," the voice pleaded, soft and trembling. My heart raced as I sat up in bed, my breaths coming quick and shallow. The voice sounded desperate, like a soul in torment. I leaped out of bed and searched the room, but there was no one to be found. The windows were shut tight and the doors were locked. I had heard the voice, there was no doubt about it, but its source remained a mystery. In the following days, I tried to put the incident out of my mind, convincing myself that it had been a vivid dream. I was determined not to let such irrational thoughts take hold of me. I delved into my work, focusing on renovations to make the house livable. However, the feeling of being watched and the whispers persisted. It was as though the house itself was trying to communicate with me, to tell me something I couldn't yet comprehend. One evening, as I was exploring the dusty attic, I came across a trove of old letters and journals. They were written by the previous inhabitants of Hollywood House, the Eldridges, who had lived there in the late 19th century. The journals were filled with accounts of strange occurrences that mirrored my own experiences. One of them caught my eye. The house is not what it seems. It harbors a presence that defies explanation. We hear the whispers at night, voices from another world, and the shadows move with a purpose we cannot comprehend. The house is cursed, and it hungers for something we cannot fathom. The journals were filled with similar stories, of doors that opened on their own, of apparitions in the hallways, and of voices that pleaded for help. The Eldridges had lived in constant fear, and they eventually abandoned the house, leaving it to decay. I couldn't ignore the striking similarities between their experiences and my own. The house was not just haunted, it was cursed, as if an insatiable darkness clung to its very foundations. As I continued my research, I learned that the house had been built on the site of a tragic event, a fire that had claimed the lives of several townspeople. It was said that the souls of those who had perished in the fire were never at rest, and their restless spirits haunted the mansion. My skepticism wavered as the evidence piled up. The history of Hollywood House was filled with inexplicable events and unexplained phenomena. It was clear that the house held secrets that defied logic and reason. One night, as I sat in the library, the whispers grew louder. They seemed to surround me, as if the walls themselves were trying to communicate. I strained to listen, and the voice became distinct, a woman's voice filled with anguish. "Help me," she implored, her words resonating with sorrow. I followed the voice to the grand staircase, where a shadowy figure materialized before me. It was a woman, her eyes filled with despair. She was dressed in a gown from a bygone era, and her form flickered in and out of existence. "My name is Eleanor," she said, her voice trembling. "I died in the fire, and my spirit has been trapped here ever since. You are our only hope." Eleanor's story was one of tragedy. She had been a resident of Hollywood, a young woman with dreams and aspirations, until the fateful night of the fire. She had perished along with others, and their spirits had been bound to the house, unable to find peace. I couldn't turn my back on Eleanor's plea for help. I reached out to a local historian, Mr. Thompson, who had spent years researching the history of Hollywood House. He explained that the house was a focal point for paranormal activity, a place where the veil between the living and the dead was thin. With Mr. Thompson's guidance, we decided to conduct a ritual to free the trapped souls and cleanse the house of its dark history. We gathered in the living room, surrounded by candles and incense, and recited incantations passed down through generations. As we chanted, the atmosphere grew heavy, and the air seemed to vibrate with energy. The whispers in the walls intensified, as if the spirits were aware of our intentions. I felt a presence in the room, a gathering of souls seeking release. Suddenly, the room grew icy cold, and the shadowy figures of the trapped souls materialized before us. Eleanor, along with others, stood in a solemn assembly, their eyes filled with gratitude and longing. The atmosphere was charged with emotion as we completed the ritual. The spirits began to fade, their forms dissolving into the ether. Eleanor's voice, filled with relief, echoed through the room. "Thank you," she whispered, and then she was gone. The house fell silent, and the weight of its cursed history seemed to lift. The whispers were gone, and the oppressive atmosphere had dissipated. I had not only inherited a haunted house, but had played a part in setting its restless souls free. In the weeks that followed, Hollywood House no longer felt haunted. It was a place of serenity, with no whispers or unexplained phenomena. The history of the mansion had changed from one of darkness to one of redemption. As I continued my life in Hollywood, I couldn't help but reflect on the mysteries of the house. I had learned that sometimes the unexplainable defied the rational mind. The spirits that had haunted the house were not malevolent, but trapped souls seeking release from their torment. I had been a part of their liberation, and the experience had forever altered my perception of the supernatural. Hollywood House, once a place of fear and uncertainty, had become a sanctuary of peace and redemption. Its history no longer whispered of despair, but of the resilience of the human spirit and the power of compassion and understanding. And as I looked out at the town of Hollywood from the mansion's grand windows, I knew that the house had found its own peace, and so had I. And as I looked out at the town of Hollywood from the mansion's grand windows, I knew that the house had found its own peace, and so had I. Story 3. The day we moved into Sterling House was like any other. The sun cast long shadows on the lawn as we carried our boxes through the creaking front door. My husband David and I had always dreamed of owning an old Victorian house, and Sterling House was the embodiment of that dream. It was a stately 3-story structure with a wraparound porch, intricate woodwork, and a history that whispered through its weathered walls. Our 2 children, Emily and Daniel, were thrilled at the idea of living in such a grand house, though there was one peculiar aspect that gave them pause. The townsfolk had whispered about the house, calling it haunted and cursed. They claimed it was a place of restless spirits and unexplained events. But we dismissed these stories as mere superstition, eager to start our new life. The first night in Sterling House was quiet and uneventful. We gathered in the cozy, old-fashioned living room to celebrate our new beginning. The fireplace crackled with life, and Emily and Daniel played with their toys. The only thing that seemed odd was the faint odor of roses that lingered in the air, but we attributed it to some old potpourri left behind by the previous owners. That night, as we settled into our respective rooms, I couldn't help but marvel at the house's character. The rooms were spacious, and the moonlight filtered through the lace curtains, casting intricate patterns on the hardwood floors. I fell asleep to the soothing sound of the wind rustling through the leaves outside. But then, in the dead of night, I was jolted awake by a soft, distant whisper. It was so faint that I couldn't make out the words. I lay in bed, straining my ears, but the voice disappeared as quickly as it had come. I shook off the cold feeling, blaming it on my imagination running wild. Over the next few weeks, strange things began to happen. Emily started having vivid nightmares, waking up in tears, speaking of a dark figure at the foot of her bed. Daniel claimed he saw his toys move on their own and heard whispers in the hallways. I too experienced the whispered voices at odd hours, and the scent of roses became more pronounced. David, ever the skeptic, brushed off our concerns, attributing it to stress and our overactive imaginations. He urged us to embrace the house's charm and history, rather than fear its supposed hauntings. One day, while I was cleaning out the attic, I came across a stack of old, dusty journals. They were filled with the handwritten thoughts and experiences of previous residents. The entries were a mix of mundane daily life and accounts of strange occurrences that mirrored our own. One sentence from the year 1923 stood out. "The whispers persist, and I can't bear to sleep in the master bedroom anymore. The scent of roses lingers, and I often feel a cold presence by my side. I know not what haunts this house, but I am certain it is not of this world." The journal was filled with similar stories, and it sent a cold breeze down my back. I shared my discovery with David, who, despite his skepticism, couldn't deny the scary connection between our experiences and those of the previous residents. As our unease grew, we decided to investigate the house's history. We discovered that a family named the Sterlings had lived in the house for generations until it was sold to the family we had purchased it from. The Sterlings had been prominent in the town, known for their wealth and power. Rumor had it that the family had a dark side, dabbling in the occult and dark practices. Determined to put an end to the unsettling occurrences, we decided to contact a local historian to learn more about the Sterling family's past. The historian, Mrs. Anderson, was a frail, elderly woman with a wealth of knowledge about the town's history. She invited us to her home to share her findings. Mrs. Anderson's living room was filled with ancient books and dusty tomes. She began to recount the history of the Sterlings, explaining that they had been obsessed with the occult and the afterlife. They were rumored to have performed dark rituals within the house, and it was said that they had communed with the dead. The Sterlings were searching for something beyond the realm of the living, Mrs. Anderson said. They believed that the house held a gateway to another world, and their experiments were their attempt to bridge the gap between life and death. As she spoke, I couldn't help but wonder if the strange occurrences we'd experienced were somehow linked to the Sterling family's obsession with the supernatural. Mrs. Anderson offered to help us cleanse the house and rid it of any lingering negative energy. She explained that we needed to perform a ritual that would break the connection between our world and the other side. That night we gathered in the living room, the hearth crackling with a warm fire. Mrs. Anderson led the ritual, guiding us through each step. We lit candles, burned sage, and recited incantations to banish any lingering spirits. As we chanted, the air grew heavy and the scent of roses became overpowering. A soft wind rustled through the curtains. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped and a shadowy figure materialized before us. It was a woman, her eyes hollow and sorrowful. She seemed to be from another time, dressed in a gown reminiscent of the early 1900s. Her presence made my blood freeze. The figure spoke in a soft, mournful voice. "You have awakened me from my slumber. I am Isabella Sterling, and I have been trapped in this house for eternity. The experiments of my family tethered me to this realm, and I have longed for release." Tears welled up in her eyes as she told us her story. Isabella explained that she had been an innocent victim of her family's dark pursuits. They had used her as a vessel to communicate with the dead, and her spirit had been bound to the house ever since. We felt a deep sympathy for Isabella, trapped in a liminal state between life and death. Mrs. Anderson continued the ritual, beseeching Isabella to find peace and move on to the afterlife. Isabella's form began to waver, and her voice faded as she gradually disappeared into the ether. The room grew still and the scent of roses lifted. It was as though the weight of centuries had been lifted from Sterling House. We completed the ritual, ensuring that Isabella's spirit had found the release it had longed for. In the days that followed, the house felt different. The air was lighter, and the unsettling occurrences ceased. Emily and Daniel's nightmares subsided, and the whispers that had haunted us for weeks disappeared. It was as if the house had been cleansed of its dark past. Sterling House, once a place of fear and uncertainty, had become a warm and welcoming home. Isabella's presence no longer lingered, and the history that had whispered through its walls was now a distant echo. We had finally found peace in our new home. As the years passed, we cherished our time in Sterling House. It had become a place of happiness, where our family had grown. My name is Alex, and I never thought I'd be telling a story like this. It all began when my girlfriend Emily started acting strange, stranger than I could have ever imagined. Emily and I had been together for over 2 years, and for the most part, our relationship was perfect. We shared the same interests, had the same sense of humor, and couldn't get enough of each other's company. But something changed one fateful summer evening, and it was the beginning of a descent into madness I could never have predicted. It was a warm, balmy night when Emily and I decided to take a walk in the park near our apartment. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the grass, and the air was filled with the gentle hum of crickets. It was the kind of night that made you feel alive, and Emily and I relished the opportunity to spend it together. As we strolled hand in hand, I couldn't help but admire how the moonlight played on her features, casting a soft glow over her face. She had always been beautiful, but that night, she looked positively ethereal. But then, as we reached the center of the park, Emily suddenly stopped in her tracks. Her grip on my hand tightened, and her eyes, once bright and full of life, took on a distant, vacant look. "Emily, what's wrong?" I asked, my concern growing. She didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge my presence. Instead, she began to mutter under her breath, her words unintelligible. It was as if she had been transported to another world, one that I couldn't see or understand. I tried to snap her out of it, gently shaking her shoulder and calling her name, but it was as if she were in a trance. Her muttering grew louder, more frantic, and I could see the fear in her eyes. "Emily, snap out of it," I pleaded, my heart racing. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the episode ended. Emily blinked as if waking from a dream and looked at me with a bewildered expression. "What just happened?" she asked, her voice trembling. I couldn't answer, couldn't comprehend what had just occurred. I was relieved that she was back to herself, but a nagging unease settled in the pit of my stomach. We decided to cut our walk short and headed back to our apartment. Emily seemed shaken, but she couldn't provide any explanation for her strange behavior. She blamed it on stress and fatigue, and I wanted to believe her. But as the days went by, Emily's odd episodes became more frequent. She would zone out at random moments, her eyes losing focus as she muttered incomprehensible words. Sometimes, she would wake up in the middle of the night screaming in terror, unable to remember her nightmares. I was worried sick about her, but she insisted that she was fine, that it was just a phase. She brushed off my concerns, even though I could see the toll it was taking on her. Her once vibrant personality had become muted and withdrawn. Then one evening, as we were having dinner, Emily did something that sent chills down my spine. She suddenly stopped eating, her fork hovering halfway to her mouth, and her eyes locked onto mine with a malevolent intensity I had never seen before. "Emily, what's wrong?" I asked, my voice trembling. She didn't respond, didn't blink. Instead, she began to speak, but it wasn't her voice that came out of her mouth. It was a low, guttural growl filled with an otherworldly malevolence that made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. "Leave, now," the voice hissed. "Leave before it's too late." I recoiled in horror, pushing my chair back from the table. Emily's eyes cleared, and she looked at me with confusion and fear. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice trembling. I couldn't find the words to explain what had just happened. I felt like I was losing my mind, like reality itself was unraveling before my eyes. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in bed, listening to Emily's soft breathing beside me. I didn't know what to do, who to turn to for help. It felt like I was trapped in a waking nightmare, and I couldn't escape. The days that followed were a blur of fear and uncertainty. Emily's episodes grew worse, and I could see the toll it was taking on her physically and emotionally. She had dark circles under her eyes, and her once lustrous hair had lost its shine. I tried to research her symptoms online, but I couldn't find any answers. It was as if whatever was afflicting her defied explanation. I begged her to see a doctor, but she refused, insisting that it was just a phase and that it would pass. Then one evening, as I was sitting in the living room, I heard Emily talking to herself in the bedroom. It wasn't the muttering I had grown accustomed to. It was a full-blown conversation, as if she were speaking to someone else. I tiptoed to the bedroom door and listened, my heart pounding in my chest. Emily's voice was filled with anger and desperation, and she was pleading with someone, or something. "No, please, I can't do it," she sobbed. "You promised you would leave him alone." I pushed the bedroom door open, and what I saw sent shockwaves through my body. Emily was sitting on the edge of the bed, her eyes wide with terror as she spoke to an empty corner of the room. "Who are you talking to?" I demanded, my voice trembling. Emily turned to me, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and despair. "It won't leave me alone, Alex. It's always there, watching, waiting. It wants something from me, something I can't give." I didn't know what to say, how to help her. I felt utterly powerless in the face of whatever was tormenting her. That night, I decided to set up a camera in the bedroom, hoping to capture evidence of Emily's strange behavior. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to her episodes, something sinister and inexplicable. As I reviewed the footage the next morning, my blood ran cold. In the darkness of the bedroom, I could see Emily sitting on the bed, her eyes vacant as she spoke to the empty corner of the room. But there was something else, something I couldn't explain. A shadowy figure, barely visible in the dim light, seemed to materialize in the corner of the room. It was tall and hunched, its form shifting and contorting as if it were made of smoke and darkness. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was as if I had captured evidence of the malevolent presence that had taken hold of Emily. But what was it? And what did it want from her? I decided to seek help from a paranormal investigator, hoping that they could provide answers and a way to help Emily. The investigator, a man named Dr. Mitchell, arrived at our apartment with a team of researchers and equipment. They conducted a thorough investigation, using electromagnetic field detectors and audio recording devices. As they worked, I couldn't shake the feeling that the apartment was filled with an oppressive energy, as if something was watching us. Hours passed, and the investigators finally sat down with me to discuss their findings. Dr. Mitchell had a grave expression on his face, and I could tell that he had seen something that disturbed him. "We've detected unusual energy patterns in your apartment," he began, "and we've captured some disturbing audio recordings." He played a recording for me and I felt a chill run down my spine. It was Emily's voice, but it was distorted, filled with anguish and despair. She was pleading with someone, or something. "I can't do it," she sobbed. "I can't give you what you want." The recording made my blood freeze. I had heard those words before, in the bedroom that night when Emily had spoken to the empty corner. Dr. Mitchell continued, "We believe that your girlfriend is being tormented by a malevolent entity, one that feeds on her fear and despair. It's a parasitic entity that has attached itself to her, and it won't let go without a fight." I was horrified by the revelation. I couldn't believe that something so sinister could have taken hold of Emily. I asked Dr. Mitchell if there was a way to remove the entity, to free her from its torment. He nodded solemnly. "There is a ritual that can banish the entity, but it won't be easy. We'll need to perform it tonight during the peak of its activity, and we'll need your help." I agreed without hesitation, desperate to free Emily from the entity's grip. Dr. Mitchell and his team spent the day preparing for the ritual, gathering candles, incense, and other tools. As night fell, we gathered in the living room, ready to confront the malevolent entity. The atmosphere in the apartment was heavy with tension, and I could feel the entity's presence lurking in the shadows. Dr. Mitchell began the ritual, reciting incantations and performing sacred gestures. The room seemed to come alive with energy, as if the very air were charged with power. As the ritual reached its climax, I heard a low, guttural growl emanate from the darkness. The entity was fighting back, resisting its banishment. The room grew colder and the candles flickered as if they were about to be extinguished. But Dr. Mitchell pressed on, his voice unwavering. He called upon higher powers to aid us in our battle against the malevolent entity. I could feel the weight of its presence lifting, as if it were being torn away from Emily. And then, with a final, triumphant incantation, Dr. Mitchell banished the entity from our apartment. The room seemed to brighten, and I could feel a sense of peace wash over me. It was finally over. Emily sat on the floor, her eyes wide with bewilderment. She looked at me as if she had just woken from a nightmare. What happened?" she asked, her voice trembling. I helped her to her feet and held her tightly. "It's over, Emily. The entity is gone. You're safe now." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. It was as if she had been freed from a prison of fear and despair. In the days that followed, Emily seemed like her old self again. Her strange episodes had ceased, and her vibrant personality had returned. We couldn't explain what had happened, but we were grateful that it was finally over. As I sat with Emily one evening holding her hand, she looked at me with gratitude and love in her eyes. "Thank you, Alex. You saved me." I smiled and kissed her forehead. "I would do anything for you, Emily. I'm just glad you're okay." But even as we embraced, I couldn't help but wonder what had really happened. What had caused Emily to be tormented by the malevolent entity in the first place? And I couldn't shake the feeling that there were secrets lurking in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. As the days turned into weeks, I continued to research the paranormal, desperate to find answers. I discovered stories of entities that attached themselves to vulnerable individuals, feeding on their fear and despair. They were ancient and malevolent, and they would stop at nothing to claim their victims. I couldn't help but wonder if there were others out there, like Emily, who were being tormented by these sinister entities. And I knew that I had to find a way to protect them, to banish the darkness that lurked in the shadows. As I delved deeper into the world of the paranormal, I couldn't shake the feeling that our battle against the malevolent entity was far from over. There were forces beyond our understanding, lurking in the darkness, waiting to be uncovered. And I was determined to confront them no matter the cost. For in the shadows, in the hidden corners of the world, there were secrets waiting to be uncovered, and I was determined to uncover them. The darkness may have taken hold of Emily, but it would not claim any more victims on my watch. Story 2. It was a sweltering summer night in the heart of the city. The relentless heat had driven most of the residents indoors, seeking refuge in the cool embrace of air conditioning. But not me. I had always been drawn to the city's nocturnal side, its secrets and shadows that came alive after dark. With my headphones on and the city's pulse reverberating through my veins, I decided to take a late-night walk. The streets were nearly empty, bathed in the pale glow of streetlights that flickered like dying stars. I walked with purpose, the rhythmic beat of my music matching the cadence of my footsteps. As I turned down a dimly lit alley, my senses heightened. There was something unsettling about the deserted streets, a feeling that I couldn't quite shake. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone or something lurking in the shadows. There was no one there, of course, just the empty alley and the distant hum of the city. I forced myself to shake off the unease and continued my journey. It was when I reached the bridge that spans the river that I first noticed it, the shadowy figure that seemed to materialize out of thin air. It was a tall, imposing silhouette, shrouded in darkness and devoid of any discernible features. It stood beneath a flickering streetlight, motionless, as if waiting for something. My heart skipped a beat as I quickened my pace. I tried to convince myself that it was just a trick of the light, a figment of my overactive imagination. But as I glanced over my shoulder again, the figure was still there, closer now and undeniably real. I continued to walk, my heart pounding in my chest. I told myself to stay calm, that there was a logical explanation for this. Maybe it was just a late-night wanderer, lost in thought like I was. But the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach told me otherwise. As I crossed the bridge and descended a flight of stairs that led to the riverbank, I realized that the figure was following me. Its movements were slow and deliberate, always keeping a fixed distance. I could hear the soft, rhythmic echo of its footsteps, a haunting accompaniment to the music in my ears. I considered turning back, confronting the figure, demanding an explanation for its unsettling presence. But a deep sense of dread held me back. I knew that whatever or whoever this was, it was no ordinary stranger. I walked along the river, my footsteps echoing in the desolate night. The city's skyline loomed overhead, a dark, towering presence that seemed to press down on me. The figure continued to follow, its presence an ominous shadow at the edge of my perception. I couldn't take it anymore. I stopped in my tracks, ripping the headphones from my ears and turning to face the figure. It was closer now, just a few yards away, and I could see that it wore a long, tattered coat that billowed in the night breeze. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice quivering with a mixture of fear and anger. The figure remained silent, its form shrouded in darkness. I took a step closer, my heart pounding in my chest. I said, "Who are you? Why are you following me?" Still there was no response. The figure seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, its presence a looming, oppressive force. I took a deep breath, my instincts screaming at me to run, to escape this menacing presence. But I couldn't tear my eyes away from it. I had to know who or what I was dealing with. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Finally, the figure spoke, its voice a hollow, whispering rasp that felt cold. "I seek redemption." The words hung in the air like a sinister omen. Redemption? What did that mean? And why did this figure's presence fill me with such an overwhelming sense of dread? I took another step closer, my curiosity overpowering my fear. Redemption for what? The figure hesitated, as if struggling to find the right words. For the sins of the past. For the darkness that haunts my soul. I felt a chill run down my spine. The figure's words were cryptic, filled with a sense of profound sorrow and regret. I couldn't help but be drawn in, as if I were unraveling a mystery that I was never meant to uncover. "Who are you?" I asked again, my voice trembling. The figure finally stepped into the dim glow of a nearby streetlight, revealing a face that was both familiar and utterly alien. Its features were contorted, twisted by some unseen torment, and its eyes bore into mine with a haunting intensity. "I am a reflection of your own darkness," it said, its voice echoing in my mind. "I am the embodiment of your deepest fears and regrets." I stumbled back, a sense of dread washing over me. It couldn't be true, couldn't be real. This figure, this shadowy presence, it was a manifestation of my own inner demons. "Get away from me," I whispered, my heart pounding in my chest. But the figure remained, its eyes never leaving mine. "I cannot be banished so easily, for I am a part of you." I turned and ran, my footsteps echoing in the empty streets. The figure followed, always at a fixed distance, as if it were tethered to me by an invisible thread. Panic coursed through my veins as I sprinted through the city. desperate to escape the relentless pursuit of my own darkness. I didn't know how long I ran or where I was headed. All I knew was that I had to get away from the figure, from the haunting presence that threatened to consume me. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but I couldn't stop. Eventually, I found myself in a deserted park surrounded by trees and darkness. I collapsed onto a park bench, gasping for breath, my heart pounding in my chest. I looked around, expecting to see the figure closing in on me. But it was gone. I sat there in the darkness, my mind reeling from the encounter. The figure had vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my fear. I couldn't deny the truth any longer. The figure, the darkness, it was a part of me, a manifestation of my own inner demons. It had followed me, haunted me, and forced me to confront the darkness that lurked within my own soul. As I sat in the park, the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, casting a faint glow over the city. I knew that I could never escape the shadowy figure, for it was a part of me, a reflection of my own fears and regrets. And as I watched the city awaken, I couldn't help but wonder if redemption was truly possible, if I could ever find a way to confront and conquer the darkness that dwelled within me. Story 3. My name is Ethan, and I've always had a fascination with the woods. Ever since I was a child, I would spend hours exploring the dense forest that surrounded my family's cabin. The trees, the wildlife, the feeling of being surrounded by nature's secrets. It all drew me in like a moth to a flame. But as I would soon discover, some secrets are best left untouched. It was a crisp, moonlit night when it all began. The woods had always been a place of comfort and solace for me. But that night, as I ventured deeper into the forest than ever before, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. Something was watching me. I had brought my trusty flashlight, but even its beam seemed feeble in the vast expanse of the trees. I pushed onward, the crunch of leaves and twigs beneath my boots the only sound in the otherwise silent night. The forest was a labyrinth of shadows, and my imagination played tricks on me. I thought I saw movement in the corner of my eye, heard faint whispers carried by the wind, and felt the temperature drop whenever I paused to catch my breath. Still, I brushed it off as my own paranoia and continued my journey. Hours passed, and I had lost all sense of time and direction. The moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie silhouettes of the trees on the forest floor. That's when I stumbled upon it, a clearing bathed in moonlight with an ancient gnarled tree at its center. The tree was unlike anything I had ever seen. Its bark was a deep, almost obsidian black, and its branches twisted and contorted as if they were reaching out for something, or someone. The air around it felt heavy and oppressive, and the silence was suffocating. Despite my unease, I couldn't tear my eyes away from the tree. It had an otherworldly beauty, a sinister allure that drew me closer. I reached out to touch its bark, my fingers trembling as they made contact with the rough surface. That's when I heard it, a soft, mournful whisper like the sigh of a dying breeze. It seemed to emanate from the tree itself, as if it held the secrets of the forest within its ancient heart. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice barely audible even to my own ears. The whisper grew louder, more insistent, and I could make out words, faint and fragmented. "Guardian. Forsaken. Beware." I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest. The tree, the clearing, the whole forest. It felt wrong, like a nightmare brought to life. Panic gripped me and I turned to run, but the path I had followed had vanished, replaced by an impenetrable wall of trees. I was trapped. The whispering grew louder, more frantic, and the shadows seemed to come alive, twisting and writhing as if they had a life of their own. I had to get out of there, had to escape the suffocating darkness closing in around me. Frantically, I retraced my steps, stumbling over roots and underbrush as I tried to find my way back to the safety of the cabin. But the forest had changed, as if it had rearranged itself to keep me captive. The trees loomed like ancient sentinels, their branches reaching out to ensnare me. Hours turned into days, or at least it felt that way. I was exhausted, my body aching from the relentless pursuit of escape. The whispers had grown louder, more menacing, and I could feel a malevolent presence lurking just beyond the edge of my vision. I had lost all sense of time and reality. The forest had become a nightmarish labyrinth, and I was its unwilling prisoner. I knew then that I had trespassed into something beyond my comprehension, something ancient and vengeful. Just when I thought I couldn't go on any longer, I stumbled upon a small, dilapidated cabin hidden deep within the woods. It was a decrepit, rotting structure, but it offered shelter from the relentless darkness that had pursued me. Inside, I found a dusty, tattered journal on a wooden table. Its pages were filled with the frenzied writings of a previous occupant, someone who had also been ensnared by the forest's sinister grip. "Guardian of the woods," the journal read. "Beware its whispers, its seductive call. It promises secrets, power, but it's a trap, a malevolent force that feeds on the lost and the forsaken. I have seen things in these woods, things that should never have existed." The journal spoke of a ritual, a way to appease the guardian and escape its clutches. Desperate and terrified, I followed the instructions, reciting the incantation as the whispers grew louder and the shadows closed in around me. Suddenly, the cabin shook as if caught in a violent storm. The walls groaned and the roof threatened to collapse. I could hear the guardian's furious howls, its rage echoing through the trees. But then, as suddenly as it had begun, the chaos stopped. The cabin was still, and the forest outside seemed to have lost interest in me. I cautiously stepped outside, and to my astonishment, I found myself standing at the edge of the woods, just a stone's throw from the cabin. The guardian had released me. I stumbled back to my family's cabin, disheveled and traumatized. I didn't speak of my ordeal, not wanting to burden my loved ones with the horrors I had witnessed. But the memory of that night, of the guardian and the whispers, haunted my dreams. Years passed, and I tried to put the forest and its malevolent guardian behind me. I got married, had children of my own, and moved far away from those cursed woods. But the memory of that night was always there, lurking in the shadows of my mind. Then, one fateful night as I lay in bed, I heard it. The soft, mournful whisper, the same one I had heard in the clearing so long ago. It echoed through the darkness, filling my room with dread. "Guardian forsaken, beware." My heart raced, and I knew that the guardian had not forgotten me. It had followed me, waiting for the right moment to reclaim what it believed was rightfully its own. I never went back to the woods, but the guardian's whispers grew louder with each passing night. It seemed to seep into every corner of my life, poisoning my thoughts and driving me to the brink of madness. I tried to protect my family, to shield them from the malevolent force that had taken hold of me, but it was futile. The guardian's whispers grew louder, more insistent, until I could no longer resist its call. One night, as the moon hung low in the sky, I left my home and ventured into the darkness, drawn by the sinister allure of the guardian and the secrets it promised. The woods had claimed me once again, and this time I knew there was no escape. As I walked deeper into the forest, the shadows closed in around me, and the whispers became a deafening cacophony. I was no longer a trespasser. I was a willing servant, bound to the guardian for eternity. And so I remain lost in the depths of the woods, a forsaken soul ensnared by the malevolent force that dwells within. The guardian's whispers are my only companions now, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurks in the heart of the woods beyond midnight. Story 4. My family had just moved into a new home. It was a large, two-story house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the street as we pulled into the driveway. We were all exhausted from the move, but we couldn't wait to settle into our new place. The house had a strange aura about it, even from the outside. It stood eerily still in the growing darkness, its windows reflecting the fading twilight. As we stepped out of the car, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us, lurking in the shadows. My wife Sarah and I exchanged nervous glances, but we brushed off our unease as a product of the long day. We had 2 kids, Emily and Jack, who were equally eager to explore their new home. We grabbed our bags and headed inside. The interior of the house was grand, but it had an old-world charm that creeped me out. The wooden floors creaked with each step, and the walls were adorned with faded wallpaper that hinted at the house's long history. We started unpacking, hoping that making the house our own would ease our discomfort. That first night was restless. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to shake the feeling that something was off. The house seemed to groan and sigh as if it held secrets within its walls. I finally drifted off to sleep, but my dreams were plagued by dark shadows and whispered voices. In the days that followed, strange occurrences became a regular part of our lives. Objects would move on their own, and we would hear faint, disembodied footsteps in the hallway at night. Sarah and I tried to reassure each other that it was just our imaginations playing tricks on us. But deep down, we knew something wasn't right. One evening, as I was helping Emily with her homework in the dining room, I caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure out of the corner of my eye. I turned, but there was nothing there. Emily looked at me, concern in her eyes. "Daddy, I saw it too," she whispered. "What did you see?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. It looked like a tall man, but he was all black like a shadow. He was standing by the door. I felt a chill run down my spine. I didn't want to scare my daughter, so I tried to dismiss it. "It must have been your imagination, sweetie. This house is just new to us, that's all." But as the days turned into weeks, the encounters with the shadowy figure became more frequent. Jack claimed to have seen it as well, always lurking in the corners of his room. Sarah and I decided it was time to investigate. We did some research on the house's history and discovered that it had been built in the late 19th century. Several families had lived here over the years, but none had stayed for long. There were rumors of tragedy and strange occurrences associated with the house, but no concrete details. One night, after putting the kids to bed, Sarah and I decided to stay up and see if we could catch a glimpse of the shadowy figure ourselves. We sat in the living room, the only source of light coming from a single lamp. Hours passed in silence, but nothing happened. Sarah was beginning to nod off when I suddenly saw movement in the hallway. I motioned for her to be quiet and pointed toward the shadowy figure. There it was, just as the children had described. A tall, dark silhouette stood in the hallway, unmoving. We watched in terror as it seemed to glide closer, its form becoming more defined. It had a human shape, but its features were obscured by the impenetrable darkness. My heart pounded in my chest as I struggled to make sense of what I was seeing. Sarah's grip on my hand tightened, and I could see the fear in her eyes. The figure was now at the entrance of the living room, just a few feet away from us. Then, without warning, it vanished. One moment it was there, and the next it was gone, leaving us in stunned silence. We decided it was time to seek professional help. We contacted a paranormal investigator named Dr. Henderson, who had experience dealing with cases like ours. He arrived a few days later with a team of researchers and equipment. Dr. Henderson conducted a thorough investigation of the house, using various tools to measure electromagnetic fields and detect any unusual energy patterns. The team also set up cameras and audio recorders in different rooms. As we watched the monitors in the living room, we saw shadows darting across the hallway and heard faint whispers on the audio recordings. Dr. Henderson's team seemed both excited and unnerved by the evidence they were collecting. After a long night of investigation, Dr. Henderson sat us down in the living room to discuss his findings. "There's definitely something strange happening in this house," he began. "We've captured unexplained phenomena on our equipment, and I believe there's a strong presence here." "What can we do about it?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Dr. Henderson looked thoughtful. "I recommend a more in-depth investigation, including a psychic medium who can try to communicate with whatever is in this house. It's possible that it's a residual energy or a trapped spirit." We agreed to the medium's involvement, desperate for answers. The following week, a woman named Eliza arrived at our home. She had a calm demeanor and a soothing presence that immediately put us at ease. Eliza began her investigation by walking through the house, her eyes closed as if she were tuning into something beyond our perception. She stopped in the hallway where we had seen the shadowy figure and gasped softly. "There's a strong energy here," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's a presence that's trapped, unable to move on. It's filled with anger and sadness." She continued to explore the house, describing the sensations and emotions she was picking up on. As she entered Jack's room, her expression changed. "This is where it's strongest," she said. "The entity seems to be fixated on your son." We exchanged worried glances. Eliza suggested conducting a seance in Jack's room to try and communicate with the entity. We agreed, hoping it would provide us with some answers and a way to help our son. That night we gathered in Jack's room, the lights dimmed and a single candle flickering on the floor. Eliza sat in the center and we joined hands in a circle. She began to speak softly, calling out to the entity. The room grew colder and we could see our breath in the air. Suddenly, Jack's toys started moving on their own as if manipulated by invisible hands. Emily gasped, and I squeezed her hand to reassure her. "Who are you?" Eliza asked, her voice steady. A low, guttural voice echoed through the room, sending shivers down our spines. "I am the guardian. I watch. I protect." "Protect?" Eliza questioned. "Protect whom?" "Jack," the voice replied, sending a chill through the room. "He is mine to protect." We exchanged frightened glances. Eliza continued to communicate with the entity, trying to understand its motives. It seemed to believe that Jack was in danger, and that it needed to keep him safe at all costs. As the seance went on, the entity's messages grew more frantic and aggressive. It warned us to leave the house, to take Jack away from this place. It claimed that there were other malevolent entities in the house, and it was the only thing standing between us and them. We were terrified, unsure of what to believe. Eliza finally closed the seance and we sat in Jack's room trying to process everything we had just experienced. The room felt heavy with the presence of the entity, and we knew that we couldn't stay in the house any longer. Over the next few days, we packed up our belongings and made arrangements to stay with Sarah's parents while we figured out our next steps. Eliza blessed the house and performed a cleansing ritual, hoping to drive away the malevolent entities that had taken residence there. As we drove away from the house for the last time, I couldn't help but look back at it in the rearview mirror. It stood there, looming in the distance, a dark and foreboding presence that seemed to watch us go. We never returned to that house, and we tried to put the terrifying ordeal behind us. Jack seemed to recover from the trauma, and our lives slowly returned to normal. But we would always carry the memory of the shadowed guardian and the malevolent entities that had haunted our home. To this day, I can't help but wonder about the true nature of the entity that had claimed to protect us. Was it a benevolent force, or was it something more sinister, using our fear and vulnerability to its advantage? One thing was certain. We would never forget the shadowed guardian and the nightmare that had unfolded in our new home. And as we drove away from that cursed house, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still watching, still waiting in the depths of the darkness.